Hello everyone, welcome back to another middle game training. This is in fact game number 3, and for those wondering, have I missed a game? No, I haven't. Well, I have technically, but essentially I didn't want to really look at game number 2. I got it correct, but it was quite a simple just recapture, and I didn't particularly think it'd be worth doing a whole 10-minute video just focusing on recapturing material. So instead I've decided to just skip straight to game number 3 of the American Congress. So I think the first video got some really nice comments on there, lots of good likes as well. So obviously you guys seem to quite like this series, but for those new, make sure you give this one a like as well. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. But otherwise, let's go straight into this this position. So I'm going to now start the timer. We've got 10 minutes to try and solve this position. So let's have a look. Right, so it's black to play. So the last move, just so you guys are aware, was the move h6. So that was the last move. And this is a really interesting position. It looks like there should be an easy answer, but at the same time, oops, hold on, my thing Steam just came up there. So yeah, it's a bit of an interesting position, as both players are sort of going at each other quite aggressively. Material was even. White is obviously threatening to potentially just capture here. Actually, I think that's just a simple threat, and then I would be looking at ideas such as this. So how does one defend this? So in both my 30-second and my 3-minute analysis, I've just simply said g6. But there's a bit of a problem with playing this move, and it's a bit of a compromise, if anything, as this then sort of weakens the light squares around, the dark squares, I should say, around the black king. So I wasn't too happy with this potential continuation, but I think the real problem here is this is just a bit of this is a bit of a threat. But I was also trying to see, is there any sort of just quick counterplay that black has? Because bear in mind, white's king is not that safe on this square. So I looked for quite a while just to see if there's any sort of immediate counter-attack. Now, the problem we've got here is we don't want to move this queen. That's just a simple capture here, I think, is pretty bad for black. In fact, it would just be if, let's say, I don't know, the queen came to g4, which was one idea I had to try and threaten this potential discovery attack. Queen takes, after the king moves, this is actually a mating threat, or actually in actual fact just capture here with the queen would mate in 2. So I've got to be very careful as black in how I defend this position. What other things are significant about this? Well, there's an isolated pawn here, but I don't think that is particularly of note in this sort of position. It is quite clearly a very tactical position right now, so I think defense and tempo are going to be the number one thing. Other thoughts that I had in this position, I did think about maybe just capturing here, but I think this just opens up too much for the black king. I'm not too sure how black can sort of survive this onslaught, although thinking about it, okay, no. The problem I've always got is I want to move this queen to maybe g5, where it's sort of doing this potential threat on the king, but as soon as I move this queen, I'm giving up the defense of f7. So let's have a look. Is there any other moves that we can maybe consider? So really, my main move, I think it's the move that makes the most sense, is just playing g6, but I'm not entirely happy by this move, as I've stated already. I could even, I think even white could just play queen to f6 after captures, rook captures. I actually think white's doing really well then. He's got good control of the dark squares. He's hitting this pawn, and really, where's my counterattack? So it's not particularly a nice position to be in. So I need to think of maybe something a bit better maybe than g6, or at least a little bit more accurate. So I'm looking at this move. There's another idea, just pushing the queen away. Obviously he has no time to capture here, as we just take the queen, so he's got to do something with this queen. But the important thing by doing this is it vacates this square. And then there's some potential checks that could follow against the king. So let's have an example continuation. So we go here. What would be the best move for black? Well, let's just say it comes here, just to threaten checkmate. We've got queen here with check. Let's say the queen moves. Capture the queen. I don't like those queen captures, if I'm being honest with you. I think that just gets us back into... I would probably not want to trade queens here. Although, you know, having said that, I actually don't think the rook endgame is that bad for black, because white's got his own problems. This pawn structure here isn't great, and these pawns are really advanced, so we could just end up just picking them off potentially in an endgame. So, right, come here, queen here. Is there anything better? Can I go for the check? Say, ooh, that's interesting. If it goes here, then I could capture. So maybe queen here isn't the best move. Let's have a look at some other continuations. So I'm just going to map out potential moves. I don't think anywhere else makes sense. I don't think he really wants to be picking up pawns like here. The position is too tactical to be just going after pawns. I think both sides' kings aren't great here. Okay, so rook here, queen to this square I think is a bit more accurate. So defending the pawn, but also stopping this this threat. Queen here, check, captures, we capture back, and actually this is not a terrible position. Pawn captures we take here. There isn't any sort of nasty infiltration as we saw in some other lines. So I'm actually sort of turning. I'm really quite liking this idea now. Just hitting the queen. At the very least, that just vacates this important square for our queen. But I just want to be cautious because there's lots of tactics going on here. So g6, I think we can maybe rule out this move. I think this move is just too strong. After captures, rook captures. How do I defend this pawn? Here. Do I move my rook across? And then we've got another practical issue of, you know, this pawn dominates the square, and so how do I get this this king out? It's very difficult. If there's a rook here as well, it just doesn't smell right, this move. Although it looks like the most obvious move to play, and I can't just ignore it. If he does this though, I mean, what happens if actually pawn captures here? What happens after pawn captures? Oh no, of course the queen just goes, doesn't it? Okay, so we're coming up to the 10-minute mark now. I've got a minute left. I think I'm going to go for this move. I actually think the continuation isn't too bad for black. It looks as though I get just enough counterplay to work with here. And at the very least I can exchange queens, and it's probably a slightly more favourable trade than in the sort of G6 line. Okay, so I'm going to go for that move. Rook to E2. I've got 30 seconds left. Let's do some last blunder checks. Yeah, I quite like this move. Okay, we'll stop the time. There's about 8 seconds left. So let's have a look at what the analysis shows. Okay, right. Very interesting. Very interesting. So we got the right answer. Is the good news. So it was in fact Rook E2 was the best continuation. So just show you very briefly what the lines were saying. So it's just saying it's dead equal for white. Queen to F4 would be the best move, which is what we also discussed. And actually here it's saying the best move is actually just to maybe try and repeat the position from the looks of it, Rook to E4. That's interesting. So go here. What's wrong with Queen F2? Oh, I see. And then pick up the pawn. Very interesting. Okay. And then go back. So that's something we didn't consider. That's quite interesting. The other move, and it's still drawish, is just a move like this. And King to B1. Looks like it just about holds, but in actual fact, so this was the position I was looking at. I think actually I really like black here, just simply because after this capture, if let's say this comes in here, we're actually doing absolutely fine here. We've got our own isolated pawn that we can go after. Our rooks are communicating really well, and it's not so clear how this pawn goes. Oops, not this move. So capture. So check. King C2. Check. King D3. Just start chomping on some pawns. You could take here, but we start taking. And actually, I think it's an okay. This is definitely a playable rook ending. We're playing with the pawn up. It's probably still, white can probably still hold it, but it would be very, very difficult. So just in case you're interested, the actual continuation of the game, so this was another game between Lichtenstein and Rafael. I believe they played best of 3 in the first round, or I think it was 3 games or something. But also was Rook E2, was also played in the game, which is really good. And then after that, we had Queen F4 again. Rook E4, so did follow actually the engine's moves. Queen E2 also still an engine move. So back then they actually had engines. Then we had Rook to E3, which is interesting. I guess it kind of blunts out the queen from coming over here, I suppose. And then this queen idea was quite interesting actually. He goes first, attacks the queen, and after the queen moves, this really nice nifty move actually, queen to G6, which is actually threatening mate. So that forces off the queens, so these come off. There's a few captures, a check, another check, and then the pawns start coming off. Rook E7 now holds everything here. There is a capture here, but then the rook captures on this side. What's really strange about this game, and I wonder if the annotation was lost after this position, or maybe both players got into time pressure and didn't write down the moves, is actually white. It just says white resigned, which I'm a bit surprised about, just simply because I don't think white's totally losing here. He's down a pawn, but certainly this is not a hopeless ending. I would probably still fight this on. Edge analysis also agrees with me. Okay, black is only up 1 pawn, or white's down 1 pawn I should say, but the position is only giving it minus 0.75, which is not a huge advantage if for white to have to resign here. So there we go. That's the end of this. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll try and do. I think what I'll try and do is only do games where I think the position makes sense. I don't think it's worth covering games where the actual solution is checkmate or some sort of recapture, as I don't think that's particularly helpful. But in any case, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next part. Take care. Bye.